Stay tuned for our next episode with Shackleton. Hi, I'm Kate Ziegler, one of the hosts for the Reel Talk podcast, ACTRA Toronto's vehicle for bargaining prep. I'm here with my friend Shackleton and another little furry guest, which we may get introduced at some point. Welcome, Shaq. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself as an ACTRA member?
Oh, thank you, Kate. Thank you for having me. Yes, I've been an ACTRA member since the 90s, and during that time, I've worked primarily as a stunt performer, stunt double, but mostly as a stunt rigger or key stunt rigger on TV. See, originally it was commercials, and now it's mostly television and long format features and such. And this is my companion Bodie, the dog who you'll meet later on at some point.
Big fluffy guest.
Yes.
Love it. Obviously, when we're talking about the different categories that you can work in different contracts, our main goal today is to talk about the IPA bargaining. But I know that I think you worked with another bargaining team member, Paul Constable, on some of the Canadian Tire stuff on the commercial agreement when he was doing that work.
Yeah, I wasn't officially on the IPA team, but several times over various negotiations over the years, I've been brought in sort of ad hoc or a la carte, if you will, to help with specific issues or issues that might be related to stunts or stunt rigging.
Yeah, like through member consultation. Sometimes that's maybe in a focus group. But this time around, you've been on Working in Wages. And out of that process, the bargaining team has come up with a sort of acronym, right? AIR, A-I-R.
Yes.
Could you give me a couple of points on that maybe stand out or resonate with you most?
Okay.
You don't have to cover them all.
Well, I can because they might be on some of the notes that I was up late making. Yeah. Yes, I can. AIR stands for artificial intelligence. It also starts for accessibility. I stands for inclusion and inflation, something we can all relate to. Yes. R stands for residuals and respect. So these are things that we constantly have to be reminding ourselves as performers and as especially negotiators.
Yeah. So on that, when you read those, you read these lines: AI, residuals, accessibility, respect, inclusion. What are the things that you think pop out the most to you that when you're at the bargaining table, or you're not at the bargaining table yet, but when you're at Working in Wages, you're like, that's an area that's really, really important to me?
Oh, boy. All of them obviously are incredibly important on their own. I would say, I would like to say it's AI that stands out, but for me that really stands out because so few of us, we're just it's just at its infancy, and so few of us really know what it's all about. But I will say this: I have been shocked, enlightened, and completely relieved. I'm not just saying this because it's you and I talking here. The knowledge that our AI team has. I mean, it is mind-boggling to wrap your head around the research that they've done and the knowledge that they have. So I have to say, I'll add another R to that, and that is relieved. I really, truly am. And everything else, I know it's quite a bit different this year with AI, and we're coming off the heels of other strikes, SAG and the WGA, and I think we just avoided one with the Teamsters in casting in California as well. But I don't think anybody should panic. I don't think there's a need for a membership to panic if they don't know about AI. There's good people around. And when I look at these other things we talk about, it's nothing new. Residual, respect, accessibility, these are things that we've always fought for and that we will continue to fight for. And maybe we won't accomplish it all this go around, but I'm confident that we will, and or we'll get a lot of work done. So I don't think anyone should panic, because, again, aside from AI, and obviously, the scope of our business changing with how we view it, we have some good people there who really know what they're doing, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear you say. I think the collective bargaining process is one of the most important elements that you get to be a part of when you become a union member. And so to hear from you directly through this working wages conditions process and entering, heading into bargaining, that you're feeling that extra hour of relieved, I think, I hope that that's a message that resonates with our members coming from you, because knowing Shaq, he wouldn't say it if he didn't mean it, so that's very important. Yeah. Okay, we know that the IPA represents a lot of categories, the independent production agreement for listeners, members. ACTRA ensures that there are minimums, right? Mm-hmm. But there's so much more to every category than just this one word of principal performer, background performer, stunt performer. Could you talk a little bit, give us a bit of an overview on the stunt category and the stunt community in terms of its relationship with the IPA?
Okay, well, that's actually a really good question, and it brings up a lot. There is a lot going on within the categories themselves. So as it pertains to stunt work, we have 3 categories. We have stunt coordinator. We have stunt coordinator. We have stunt performer. And that's it. Actually, am I wrong? We might have to cut around that. Our categories are very simple, but the roles are very different. Mm-hmm. The categories basically break down as to stunt coordinator, stunt actor, or a stunt double. Right. So it's fairly self-explanatory. Stunt performer is going to say some lines or become a character. They become a stunt actor. So yeah, their rate increases as a result of that. But everybody else, and I bring this up because rates may affect us or not affect us differently than some of the other categories. A lot of times in stunt work, yes, there is your scale pay, but there's other things to consider. For instance, adjustments based on the specific skill required to accomplish a gag, or its jeopardy, its danger. So there are other things that do come into play. But essentially, it's 3 categories that we all fit into. And someone might say, well, how can that be? That person's a stunt driver, and that person's a stunt rigger, and that person's a high diver, or a fighter, again, within that framework of having 3 categories, we fit all that stuff in. Mm-hmm. So we don't have a separate category for a stunt driver. They fall under the category of stunt performer.
Right. So each performer may have they're going to have their specific specializations, or they could have specific specializations, but in terms of how we handle things in collective bargaining, we really are looking at sort of like categorical coverage instead of like pulling each thing apart, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some specific instances we could get into where, excuse me, the needs of somebody jumping into icy cold, fast-moving water would differ from somebody who is going to do a fight in a boxing match on screen. 100%. But that's no different than what an actor might have to contend with on any given day. You see more and more now that our performers absolutely do fall into specific disciplines or skill sets. But I'm not just talking about somebody was good at doing somersaults in the grass at the playground when they were a kid. I mean, you have gymnasts that are coming to our union that are world-class carded athletes. Same with some of the folks from martial arts and fight disciplines. So despite all these very, very different things and that they do and skill sets that they bring, really when you step back and you take a 1,000-foot view of it, a lot of the requirements, or I mean very basic requirements that a stunt performer needs to get their job done, are very in line and very similar with actors and puppeteers and voice artists. Surprisingly, although the exercises might be different, the prep and the training that actors do versus stunt persons is probably not all that much different. There's a very, very small number of stunt performers in our country compared to the general actor body. But it's always seemed that the onus of the safety onus has always fallen upon the stunt coordinator or the stunt performers in general, and most of them are happy to take that on, albeit officially responsible to everybody else or not. But there's only a few of us, and I know we often don't think our voices are heard, but it's important for our membership, for people from my part of the community, the stunt community, to realize that ACTRA does care, and they have put somebody in a position I think there's myself, there's Jeff Scovell, who's my alternate. Jeff is also stunt performer, a very, very highly regarded stunt performer from Toronto. We have Alana Nova, who is an amazing stunt performer and genius in her own right, and she is actually on our AI IPA committee.
Amazing.
So we like to think we got a two for one there. And of course we have Sally out west. We have some good people around, and it's important for me to let my membership know that we're here, we're looking out for you, and I think we're going to get to a place that's going to make, it's going to make everybody happy.
Yeah, and proud.
Yeah,
proud
absolutely.
To feel defended through this agreement. There are a couple of things that you said that I want to come back to, but yeah, the acknowledging that you feel there's fulsome representation on the bargaining team across the country, that you're able to, it's not just one person sitting there, and that the whole bargaining team, even you said this at the beginning, right? Every single one of these air elements is important. And feeling and recognizing that the whole bargaining team is looking at all of the different issues that come up and going, yeah, we're going to help to build each other up, all members under one agreement, right? The other thing you said, we can get in a little bit at some point about the specifics around doubling and deep fakes and digital doubles when we get into AI. But before we go there, I want to talk from a health and safety perspective. Earlier, before we got in here, we were chatting a little bit about leveling the playing field. Can you elaborate there? Have I asked you a specific enough question where we can kind of go into what does it mean to the stunt community to raise and elevate health and safety standards, which are obviously for all categories important, but really the truth is I don't think we're beating around the bush when we say stunt performers' lives, right? Lives, health and safety are being put at risk through this line of work. So how do we protect you, and how are we fighting?
Yeah, well, thank you. That is most definitely I'd say the single most important aspect of what any one in the stunt industry does, whether we're on set engaged working as a stunt safety, just being someone that'll be an extra set of eyes, to the coordinator themselves. Let me just say this: there's certain things that are our stunt coordinators don't get that the rest of our membership do get as part of their contract, as part of their scale contract. And one of the things we are trying to do is to even that playing field. Stunt coordinators, as the name would imply, and as most of you know, they oversee and supervise all the action on set for everybody. And it doesn't just mean, a car's, getting thrown off a roof on fire with somebody in it. It's all aspects of keeping the cast and often the crew safe. But at the end of the day, when everybody's jumping in their cars and going home, the stunt coordinator stays often, at least another hour or two, is cleaning up, is going through notes, dealing with changes for the next day, script changes, scheduling changes. And what happens is, I guess he's leaving. They stay up. I know it sounds silly. They stay up really, really late, those stunt coordinators. So by the time I get home, they're probably still in their trailer and they're still making phone calls to, even though it's the job of other folks in different departments to alert cast members about scheduling changes. Often this work still needs to be supervised by a stunt coordinator. So we want to get those stunt coordinators rested, and we want to get them compensated for doing so. Because, and again, the goal is to get them rested. They don't want the financial part of the turnaround. They want 11 hours off. They want to sleep and be well rested and prepared for the next day. And hopefully some of the things that we're going into the IPA with will help achieve that.
Absolutely. As you said, I just want to point out this idea of the guardians on our set through stunt or on sets, and something I think we've talked about this before, but film sets are not inherently safe spaces. No. They are made safe through the various positions and the labor positions that are brought in to ensure that safety. So that's really, really important, Shaq. Thanks for getting to that. One of the questions we have here is around AI more directly. We talked about it a little bit already, but something that I think we're all kind of struggling with within the creative industry is what has AI done? And you said we don't need to be super fearful about this, but let's just get into some of the nuances that are impacting the stunt community when you look through that AI lens, whether that's I'm a voice performer, and so we're very very, very concerned around the future of our industry. And I think that voice and stunt share a bond there, right? Mm-hmm. When we're talking about digital doubles in voice, what does that mean through a stunt lens? And what are some of the risks as you see them, either through performance capture or deep fakes, not just around a safety lens, but literally the job losses that could potentially come up if we are not able to adequately get the right protective language in place?
I'm very torn about it on a personal level because, I, like everybody else, I think AI is going to be able to do some wonderful things for us as a society. Mm-hmm. I look at medicine, I look at science, and it's incredible. I look at art, and it could be incredible if it's managed properly. But again, how it's managed properly. From a stunt perspective, oh boy, obviously deep fakes, we're all concerned. I think we're all concerned with deep fakes, and we certainly should be. First of all, I think a lot of people have, I'm speaking for myself and speaking for people within my community. I think that there is more education to be done on exactly what AI is in the first place. So, and let me back up a little bit and say, within the stunt world, and I'm sure it has been in voice and with other actors or in other types of performances in the last number of years, we've been doing face replacement within the stunt world for a lot of years. Now, I'm not going to say that it's commonplace and it's inexpensive and easy to do. But I mean, I can remember over 15 years ago when, or maybe it was even closer to 20, where we started putting dots on stunt persons' faces so they could, if it was a close-up on a stunt performer, so they could replace the star's face in later. I mean, I remember that. I remember the first day I saw that specifically and went, this could definitely change things. I know when when I talk to my other stunt brothers and sisters, I know one of the biggest concerns that we have, and we've dealt with this for years, and it's even more so now, is data capture. I don't know if that's because stunt performers or people from the stunt business are inherently more suspect of what happens with their image, or if it's just because we all converse and talk to one another more, so we know what one another is thinking a little bit more frequently.
You're sharing with one another the things that you're seeing on set, and you're going, hey, is this happening with you?
Seem right.
This doesn't seem right.
Well, again, because there's only, let's say in the Toronto region, a few hundred of us that are regularly work in the stunt business, we regularly get to see one another or converse. I don't know how that is. I don't know if other performers have that same access to one another. But we do. Anyways, the one thing it does do, it gives us the benefit of keeping up to speed on where everybody's at, what's going on, who's getting paid late, who the hot new stunt coordinator is, what shows to avoid. I can go on and on. But people's physical likeness or where the digital information is held, because most stunt performers, unfortunately, will have a story somewhere along the line. It might have come from a video game. It could have come from the IPA, where they've been asked to do some motion capture, which is certainly not uncommon with what we do. And we've all been there when the technical director or whoever's running the particular floor on that day will say, we've got all this footage of you running around. Can we just get some footage of you jumping off something? Well, the performers know full well that there's nothing in the script that involves jumping off. And some of the, technical directors will even say, I just want to keep this on file. We've been there. So we've all been exposed to it, and I think it's like anything in life. I think when people don't know what they're getting into or why they're being scanned or where that data is going or why we need that data, that's when people are getting upset, and that needs to be addressed. And I hope through this round of negotiations, it sounds like it's going to get addressed. That's a big concern for the stunt community. Now, it will. There are benefits too. Maybe it's not under the vehicle or the mechanism or the engine that is AI, but all along, again, my area of expertise is flying people on wires. I'm a human puppeteer. That's what I do. I can remember when we used to use, wires or other means of suspension that we would never use any longer because
there's been some evolution.
There's been some evolutions. I remember when it became more cost effective to rotoscope and use other techniques that some might say are similar, or the effect is similar to AI, and that we would never work again and that we would be obsolete. Well, let me tell you, we do more and more work as a result of visual effects and some of the technological advances that we've made. One might be a very simple example. This is your human, they get blown up. Well, we blow them up from here to flying through the air, but now the director wants them flying off a cliff 400 feet out and 1,000 feet down. Well, that's when our digital double might take over. Well, we would have never done that before, and now we can. But again, I think in order to make that successful, the old saying, good fences or tall fences make good neighbors. We need to have really, really strict and proper parameters around us. We have to get away from when an AD comes and bangs on your trailer and says, the scanning truck's here for the day. It's like, well, nobody told us about this. Nobody knows what it's for. And stunt people are no different. They absolutely need and want to know where their image is and where they're and how they're protected. For a fighter, the way they move, the way they fight, that is their bread and butter. The same way vocal cords, what vocal cords are for a voice performer.
Totally. It's your signature.
Yeah.
And what I think we're talking about in terms of collective bargaining is language, right? Because specific language around and parameters, and you used this great metaphor about fences and essentially boundaries, right? Is that allows us as members of a union to then help to administer our own contract, because we can point to the language and say, it says it right here. This is what I have agreed to, and anything over and above that needs to go through a different process. But in terms of collective bargaining, some of the things that we're able to achieve are those specific language items that help to protect us, right? Okay, that's so great. I'm also thinking a little bit about something you said earlier around, sometimes we talk about being in a performers union is that our shop floor opens and closes, right? In terms of like you're on set with people, you're off set with people. But the stunt community being, a smaller membership number, I guess you could say, and the connectivity and the interdependence and all of the different things, the ensemble nature of what you do, it's okay to say that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good way of putting it.
Means that a sort of shop floor essence is always kind of alive. You're talking to one another, maybe you're training together, you're working different things out. Because of that, I feel like your ear's on the ground. You're hearing things from people. Do you feel like you can talk a little bit about the kinds of concerns that come up that we haven't really addressed in our conversation so far? Like, what are the things that stunt performers are talking about within the community that they feel like we really need to find language to fix X, find language to fix Y?
Yes. Is again, obviously the physicality of what the average stunt performer might do on a given day versus an actor might seem very, very different. But as you said, there is an interdependency that stunt performers have with one another. That might come from someplace as simple as, well, they're doing a fight together. Obviously, you have to trust the person you're swinging bats at and knives at. You're going to get in cars and drive at top speed towards one another. You got to trust that they're going to jump out of the way or swerve out of the way, or whoever's dropping you from a ceiling has got you tied in properly. So there's definitely a different bond. Maybe it's a stronger bond that stunt performers have with one another. As far as let me put it this way. I know that there's many of my actor friends that spend their evenings doing live performances, improv training, casting workshops. Stunt performers are no different, except they might be in a gym training all day by themselves or with one another. Pardon me. And unfortunately, one of the things that's often overlooked is the amount of time that stunt performers spend recovering from their work. And there's a front end to that, right? Which is, a lot of times, and I'm sure most stunt performers would agree with this. Most of the accidents that happen come as a result of people being unprepared and being rushed and being tired.
There's that element
exactly.
Again, right?
So the more time that a stunt performer has after work to recover and look after themselves is decreasing their chances of being injured or other people around them being injured the next day on the next job. Getting good rest before you work isn't mutually exclusive to the job you did today or the job you did yesterday or the job you're going to go tomorrow. They do have to there does have to be an interconnection between all of those things. And we're hoping with some of the things that, again, that we're addressing in our agreement are going to give performers the tools they need to recover more, to know exactly what they're getting into. And I think it's worth mentioning that even some of the stuff that may or may not get into just because our membership might not see something specific in the proposals, I think it's worth noting that the negotiating team with staff in these rooms, just because it's not on that piece of paper, doesn't mean that it hasn't been identified as a problem. And there's also many situations where there are issues that we've brought to light with staff that the IPA team has gone, okay, well, wait a second. Let's not put this into a proposal, but let's find another fix for it. These are very actionable things that ACTRA and the community can do, and that has been done. And it probably doesn't get talked about a lot. For instance, we've realized, we all want to be paid more. We all want to be paid on time.
On time.
We talk about that a lot. We have facilitated that within the proposals, but more importantly, the team has also identified other means of addressing the situation with collective bargaining that we've already done, and language that already exists.
I think that's the thing. I remember at an early council meeting hearing this term contract administration, and the union and our staff and members there is some power to the more knowledge we have about what each other is experiencing, and the more that information reaches our staff representatives, our reps for different shows or films or whatever, the better chance they have of actually administering the rules that are in the IPA already. So that's I feel like you're right, that is a really important thing that maybe people wouldn't understand ends up coming out of these very long, comprehensive working in wages days, is you get to hear from your kind of comrades across the country around issues that are actually already in the IPA, but for a variety of reasons, no single person is at fault, have maybe lapsed, or the CMPA or whoever the producers, whoever the employer is not adhering to. And I think what Shaq's saying is, the bargaining process gives the staff the tool to go, oh, I've now heard this 16 times from every single rep from across the country. We're going to have to make sure that we send some notice to the CMPA about making sure that their members adhere to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there was plenty of instances, and for if nothing else, it's a great way to doing this work reflect on the work that we still need to do. And listen, you've been in the meetings and in the rooms. There's, it's not going to be perfect. People aren't going to get everything that they want, and there is absolutely a strategic, and as there should be, a strategic approach that goes into each of these proposals. And for lack of a better term, you don't want to waste a proposal on one thing in particular. But again, going back and reflecting upon all of these, it was a great exercise, and not just necessarily for members, but also for staff to go, you know what, we kind of already covered this in another area. I think it's been wonderful for everybody to have the ability to reflect on what we have worked hard for. Right. And the other thing I would like to mention to members too is when you get your IPA, when you get your contract to go to work, and we all like to think we're going to work on the biggest show for the most days for the most money, and the reality is that might not be the case. And your producer probably does want to pay you a ton of money, but they don't have the ton of money that you would like or that they would like themselves. But there's should recognize that there are things that when we talk about the things that are already in the IPA, they have been negotiated. When there's something in there, like, I don't know, let's call it travel time, for instance, to a remote location or outside the zone. And some people, I hope not, but some people might be inclined to go, well, it's only 15 minutes, or, well, it's only 20 minutes or half an hour. It's like, members need to remind themselves that members before them have negotiated hard to get that in there, and it's not just that obeying a particular proposal. The reason for doing so might just be because it's on the piece of paper. Obviously, that's one of them, but it's also and it's not just a pat on the back recognition. It's recognition that the negotiating team that was there before you not only did they negotiate hard, but they gave stuff up to get that. Let's call it travel time. Let's call it better notification on when your castings sessions are. And I'm sure they would have told you, well, if you don't care about travel time, I wish you'd said so, because we could have parlayed that proposal into something else that would be much more beneficial.
100%.
And so I hope all of our members just bear that in mind.
It sounds like you have almost come to like a bit of like a reverence for the history of the bargaining process, and looking at, wow, like this language has been, people have really invested in building this house, essentially. I have a question for you that I feel like stunt community members are going to hear me ask this and go like, oh my God. But I think it's really important for our members to hear, maybe have someone explain, what does previs mean?
Right. Okay. So pre-visualization from a stunt person's perspective. Okay. So maybe I should give you the other one. Sometimes it first started coming around or pre-viz, you will often hear it referred to as well. It is literally just that, a pre-visualization of what the producer or director, or what the stunt coordinator, might be a dance choreographer, but in our case, the stunt coordinator and the fight coordinator believe, based on the scripts that they've read. Like, say, for instance, on a movie, it might be what they might gear it more towards the actor or to the director. On a series, they might you might find that a stunt coordinator really focuses on maintaining a cohesive look with the action in the fights from episode to episode. And one of the things that you can do, one of the many tools that you can use, is a pre-visualization, which is you literally read something off the page. It's a script, and it might be as simple as, lady walks into a Western-style bar and gets into a fight, or antagonizes the bartender. Fight, cut, out.
Right.
Or you might read on your script, it's like 2 or 3 pages of very, very specific dialogue, and you transfer that dialogue into a facsimile or representation of what you might see on set. So in the old days, and I shouldn't say the old days, they still do it, sometimes you will be given from production, it might be an animation of very two-dimensional, 2 images per second of what a fight or a scene might look like. And it's not just to look after actors, it's also so they can show visual effect, the visual effects department, the grips, the electrics, hair and makeup. Hey, everybody, this is the action that we're trying to achieve. It's evolved over the years to the point where now in particular, the stunt department has taken a much, much greater role in actually designing that previs. So before, maybe it might have been a producer or a script supervisor sitting down with an animator going, yep, punch here, kick there. Whereas now, that onus falls upon the fight choreographer and ultimately the stunt coordinator to get together with their performers and say, okay, we have to design a scene to help move this segment of the script along. And it has to be one that is reflective of what the characters in the story are capable of. And so you'll have all the key players, all the key stunt doubles, and they will work together to develop an entire sequence. They go from as elaborate as having full-on after effects in them with blood and fire effects and hair and makeup, or it could be as simple as shooting something in an empty void. But from the stunt performer's standpoint, it's debatably physically much more difficult than the day they'll spend on set.
Yeah, 100%.
On set, you might take the fall off the table, the scripted fall off the table 2 or 3 times because you just can't afford to be there doing it 30 times throughout the day, or you'd be fired. But when you're in a previs space, now you have the luxury of having perhaps a little bit more time. And you're not just doing a fall off the table. You might do a fall off the chair as an option. So from a performer's standpoint, yeah, it's great. It helps you hone your craft. You know what you're doing. But it's a physically really, really hard day or days when you develop each of these scenes. And it's that has changed immensely. And it used to be that we would do previs once in a while. Now it's just part of what we do every day.
Thank you for walking me through that, because I think hopefully for the stunt community, and part of what they're hearing there is like this recognition from us, from you on the bargaining team and those of us involved in really trying to create awareness around every category, is that there is so much work that goes into, so much labor that goes into being a stunt performer. And it's a physical job, yes, but it is a highly technical job, highly skilled job. And I just want to say, air some gratitude and real respect for the work that you all do.
Oh, thank you.
And the process that goes into building a safe set where performers can come and do their work and feel protected, both from the stunt community and as a actor, and in an actor role as well. Shaq, we could go on forever. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you so much for seems for our community, the stunt community specifically. It's the first time in a long time that I think our community feels a much greater sense of belonging. Whereas before, it was us and them, or we would just go to staff who are more than happy to help us. Hi, Bodhi.
Representation at the table really matters.
It really feels like for the first time in a long time that we're all on the same team, and it's palpable. Is that the right word?
That's it.
Like you can feel it, and I think our members recognize that and are happy about it, and I'm happy about it. So, and I appreciate all of you going to great efforts to help us out, and I know it's not an easy time for all of us. So, thank you.
Thanks, Shaq.
Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Reel Talk. Please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow us on wherever you get your favorite podcast.